Is it just a connecting issue?
So they actually, on the town end, they have to press a button that says like live. So that way. Let's see.
I mean, it says live on the top of my screen.
Mine too.
Let's see here. My iPhone screen, I'm always like, oh, it's great. I love my iPhone, but it's just never the same as a full computer screen. Okay, so I think we're live.
Well, then shall we come to order? Welcome, everyone. Appreciate you all being here and hope everyone is well. Shall we move to the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So
Don't
moved.
you need roll call? No?
We don't generally do a roll call. Kim counts who's here.
Oh, okay,
I type
But
it
we
into the
can-
minutes.
okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second to the motion to accept the consent agenda?
Oh, motion.
All
Discussion,
in favor?
discussion.
Oh, sorry.
So I don't know if, so in the February one, that's the one you're talking about, right?
Do you want to pull it off the consent agenda for discussion, Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to, yeah, that's what yeah, well, I don't know about pulling it off. It's just like, there's a sentence that doesn't, it kind of gets
Oh.
lost. And I
Right, that
didn't
didn't
know-
have an ending.
Yeah, and I didn't know if you got, the rest of you picked it up?
Carol did, and I took it off.
You took
So
off
it was
the item?
updated, right?
Ah,
So the current version has a complete sentence, or is just that half sentence was deleted.
so there was no note in the surprise at the cost, that's off?
Yes, the latest draft deleted that.
Did we get the latest draft?
I got that version.
The new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
should have it. If you click on that same link, it'll automatically be updated.
Okay, all right, then that was the only, I just was wondering what the surprise was, because I don't. That was it, that was the only issue I had. Okay,
All right, so did we have a second?
I
All in
seconded.
favor? All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. Let's move on to reports, the treasurer's report.
Okay, so I sent along the March reports along with the April reports, and I know that you had already seen the March reports that I had emailed out earlier in April. So you'll notice there are some voided checks that have come up due to our canceled programs that have started, we've started processing those and making sure those are canceled. There was also a refund from my conference registration that will come through hopefully in June. ALA annual was canceled and they are instead doing a virtual only event. I'm not sure if I want to attend yet, so I will bring that to you in June if I do wish to attend, to have you approve that sort of virtual event and registration cost. We also started coding our COVID-19 supplies and any sort of protective equipment that we're going to need as sort of like a COVID-19 budget line, just so in the future, if there's an opportunity from reimbursement from the state, then we'll be able to easily pull that out. So pretty much any cleaning supplies beyond what we already use. We are anticipating some costs for plexiglass that will need to go up around our public service desks. We've had to buy extra latex gloves since we're wearing those. Even, paper bags to put the book curbside orders in. those expenses as well. So our reconciliations are going to look a little different. It's not going to be the things that we're normally spending on. It's going to be some added things for COVID-19 purposes. So the treasurer and I briefly spoke, I think about a week ago, about meeting to go over the end of fiscal year 20 and seeing where we will stand and some of the costs that we anticipate coming up over the next month and a half or so. So Pam, I'll reach out to you and we can schedule either a Zoom meeting or a very, very socially distanced meeting or a phone call. And also, I don't really have any update on fiscal year 21. I know that's something we've all kind of been thinking about. The last I heard was that there were meetings going on at the state level that they were going to discuss the revenue that would be coming through and what that was going to look like. So I will let you know as soon as I hear something about that and where fiscal year 21 stands. I think the budget committee might have met, but I could be wrong and I'll definitely need to check on that.
Okay.
One last thing, I did go through and just make sure that everything in our reports was looking good, and we actually are in a fairly good spot. I do anticipate some more building maintenance coming up. We are having an HVAC issue right now, so I'll go over that in just a little bit in my director's report. And we have also sort of deviated more funds in our collection budget to e-zone items. So you'll see those coming through. A lot of publishers have actually put off the printing of certain books that were going to be released around now, or items that may be released in the summer that are now pushed back to the fall or even the winter. So we sort of had to rearrange our book funding and our multimedia lines because we are anticipating buying less books, but the increase for e-zone has just skyrocketed over the past couple of weeks. So those were some of the highlights through the report. Carol.
I had a question about payments to Phil's. So I noticed in April there were two payments to Phil's, $1,500 and $2,500. Were they all for propane? Have we paid Phil's for the underground tank yet? What's that status?
So we paid Phil's for the underground tank from the Bank Newport account, and we had two Phil's from Phil's, so two propane tank fill-ups from them in April. And there might have also been a third one. I'm gonna have to check on that because I was just talking with Karen, our office administrator, today about that. So I will definitely check on that, but that was all from propane per gallon cost.
And do you anticipate that from here on in, we will be purchasing from a different vendor because we'll get a better price?
Yes, I actually, I'll update you in my director's report. I met with AmeriGas today and we had quite the day here at the library that I'll regale you with quite soon. But it all ended up okay, and they were fabulous to work with.
I have a question.
Yes, Pam.
Just refresh my memory on this. In the equipment, furnishing, and fixtures,
Yes.
we're well over the $1,000. Is that where the tank, the cost of the tank went into? The purchase of the tank?
That is a great question, because we actually haven't purchased the shelves that we were looking to purchase. So I believe that is the tank, but I will check on that and I can email you all later tonight, or definitely get that answer.
What line was that? I'm sorry, Pam.
It was equipment, furnishings, and fixtures.
Thank you.
That would make sense that it's equipment.
My other question is the electric bill. I just signed the electric bill today and it was $3,200, which is about $1,000 more than what we should be paying right now.
Yes, yes. So there's two possibilities of why that is high. We've had an issue with our lighting system, and I was just about an hour ago made aware of an issue with our HVAC system. And that's why I think it is high. So would you like me to go into it now or wait until my director's report?
That's fine, whatever. It
Okay.
doesn't matter. I was just like, when I saw that amount, and I know last month it was over, and now this month it was so far over.
Yes, yes.
Chris,
Just as a follow-up, do you remember there was somebody wrote in the paper or it was on Facebook about the lights were on during the night in the library? Is that because what you explained earlier, that just now, that
Yes.
there was a malfunction in the lighting? Is that what that was about?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, okay.
And just for the record, I have never had anybody email me or actually call me about that. So I would just
Oh.
like to encourage any citizens who are watching at home that if you see anything, please give me a call here at the library. We would greatly appreciate that. So
Was that on a Facebook page? Because
I
I think
think it
somebody
was.
said, why don't you email the librarian and ask her?
Yes, I actually replied and said that they
You
should.
did, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember where it was. I remember reading about it. Okay. All right, thank you.
We highly encourage communication.
It's a good thing. It helps a lot. So thank you.
You're welcome.
any other discussion of the treasurer's report?
I have a question. Just
Yes.
clarification, sorry. The tank that you talked about, I remember hearing about it at a couple of meetings ago, one of the in-person meetings. Was that a tank we formerly leased? Was that the issue?
So
The-
Phil's had installed it back when the building was built, and so they technically owned the tank.
Oh,
And
I see.
so, yeah, they were responsible for the maintenance on it or anything that came up with it. And they also they were the sole provider of propane. So now that we own it, we're able to go out to bid for other pricing for our contract.
Thanks for the clarification. Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
All right, shall we move on to the director's report?
We have to move.
Carol,
motion?
it's been such a long time. Do we need to vote to accept the treasurer's report?
I don't think we've typically done that.
Okay.
That
Didn't
she's
think
just
so.
giving us the report.
All right, so let's move on to the director's report.
Okay, so statistics have been a little difficult to keep track of just because we were making a lot of phone calls to our senior citizens during the month of April. So I'm still working on getting our phone and reference statistics together and making sure that those are accurate. So those are forthcoming, but you'll obviously notice that our circulation was so far down because we were not circulating any items, and any circulation that came through would have been attributed to renewals online or any sort of, well, pretty much renewals online. So we also had to cancel pretty much the majority of our programs, and we've been working on Zoom programs and also, finding creative ways to work on Facebook event programs and also Twitter programs. So this has really been a steep learning curve for all of us, and making sure that we're best serving our population in, this time that we have now. So one thing that I have mentioned is our e-zone has just absolutely skyrocketed. And this has been one of the busiest times that we've had. Sandy, I see your hand up. Would you?
No.
Okay.
I'm just shuffling a couple of pieces of paper. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. So the other thing too is we're still getting wireless internet statistics because we have had so much use in our parking lot. I mean, there's pretty much someone here all the time using our parking lot Wi-Fi.
Really?
Yes, yep, it's pretty great to see actually. And it stretches all the way out there. And I actually have a lead on a grant that Ocean had obtained, and they are our internet provider. And they are actually working to get more hardware into our parking lot so that we can expand our coverage in all areas of the lot. Because right now it's more just right in front of the building and right on the side of the building, like where the drive-through is. So that would come at no cost to us. But we won't be able to track statistics from that. So that's one of the downsides. And I'm hoping that in the future that they would be able to provide us with those. Sandy.
So is that only to give people access to library services? Is that the purpose of it, or is it just general use?
I think that, do you mean the Wi-Fi?
Yes, I'm sorry, the Wi-Fi.
Yep. So pretty much, before we closed, I had calls about folks who needed internet access because they were going to need to work from home, or they were coming home from college and needed, consistent internet access. So we recommend they go out in the front of the building, and the wireless internet sessions came in at 144 sessions during the month of April. So that was most likely a mix of staff phones when they come in the building connecting. And we've had limited staff here, but also the devices out in the parking lot connecting to our routers.
How widely known is this service?
So we've published it on our website. We have put it on social media, and we've also put it in our e-newsletter. And I believe it might have also been in one of the newspapers as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's what I have for statistics. You're going to start to see circulation come back up because we are getting intermittent delivery again. So it's going to come about once per week, and we'll check those items in, whether they're holds that folks have been waiting for, or they're items coming back to our library from other libraries. So our circulation statistics, you'll start to see something again very soon.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are the automatic renewals going to continue to happen? Once they are.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I believe I checked a book out to myself today, excuse me, and I think it came up as June 6th. So they are extending, to the 3-week mark, which is great. And I think that if somebody were to come to us and say, like, I was sick, I couldn't make it back to the library to return this, then we need to show them some grace during this time as far as fines and fees go. But the automatic renewal pretty much takes care of that anyway. So. Okay. Any questions about the statistics before I move on to facilities? Okay, so facilities. So I've had quite the month with the facilities, and I say that every month, and
It's had quite the year and a half.
it just keeps coming. So HVAC, I'll start with that since that is ongoing. Back in March, GM Refrigeration had started a routine inspection, and they had to take a break until we were able to get them back in the building. So they've been back, and they've been here the past 6 days. They did their regular check. And then they also found that some of our rooftop units needed software updates. So this is separate from the in-library computer system that we use to control the HVAC system. So they came in, they figured out how to do that. It did take them a while, and they were able to update all of the rooftop units. Once that was done, they noticed that the module in the library was not shutting the machines off when the building was considered unoccupied, so when we were closed. So it looks to them that our HVAC system has been up and running pretty much all the time, which is a pretty serious issue considering that we are not here for half the time that is running. So they are looking into it now. They will be back either tomorrow or Wednesday to keep working on this. But that could very well be part of the issue that we've had. I know about 3 months ago when I came into the building early one morning, it was chilly. So it had almost felt like the heat hadn't kicked on. And then as soon as it hit 8 a.m., I did hear the circulation of the system start. So this tells me it's a more recent issue. And hopefully we've caught it pretty early on, but I do believe that may be part of the electric bill issue that we've had going on. The second part of the electric bill issue is that we saw our lights were switching on. I was able to go into our security cameras and see that our lights were switching on at night. And it appears that when cars drive by in Roosevelt, that was switching on. I'm not sure why this has become a big issue all of a sudden, but I've noticed that our stack lights, so the lights in the adult fiction and nonfiction stacks, will turn on, say at 2 a.m. and they'll be on for the rest of the night. So I do have a call into Sheridan Electric, and I'm going to follow up with them to have them come out and adjust that sensitivity, because if a car or a truck is going by on Roosevelt or on Boglemarsh, our system should not be turning on. It should be more concentrated to motion in the library. And I can confirm that nobody has been in the library when that's happened. So I do think that is part of the electric issue as well. Any question about those two things that have come up? And if no, I'll move on.
I have a question.
Yes.
The company that owns the software that controls all of the lights and everything else in the building,
Mhm.
could it possibly be something with that?
It could be. It's called a Crestron system, which is a pretty popular lighting system. And Sheridan Electric was the company that had put the system in originally. So they are who I called to come look at it now. So that could definitely be part of the system as well. And I'm going to have to do.
Last update done on that. They update every 6 months. Is that?
Oh, no, that's for HVAC.
Oh, that was just the HVAC.
Yep. Yep.
So, okay, so now I'm confused. So that system that I think we do it quarterly, actually,
It's every half a year usually.
half a year.
Mhm.
So that's the one that had not been keeping up with the updates before.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that is the one that is now a problem with the HVAC system. 'Cause you can't
Yes.
update it.
My motion lights work really well in my office. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Okay.
So now that is what you're also recommending that needs to be replaced.
That would be the HVAC system, yes. And that's the one that they're going to discontinue the updates for next July.
After 5 years.
Yes,
5 years and the system is irrelevant.
yes. I'm shocked.
That's so bad.
Yes. And we
Planned
can
obsolescence.
continue to use it, but there's a risk that it could fail. And I think that it might be a difficult thing for us to get to that point. And I think that, you know, we can back up as long as we want and as many times as we want, but when it does fail, we would not have control of the system, and we would have to then have the tech come out and put the new system in.
Wow.
This is the AC or the lights
We
you're talking
went
about? I'm
through
sorry.
all of that to update that system because it hadn't been being kept up to date a year and a half ago. And now it's obsolete.
Well, next year.
I thought it was this July.
Nope, July 2021.
Okay. Okay.
Carol?
Catherine, do you know when Sheridan Electric comes out, will they be able to look at some sort of record and tell us whether, oh yes, your lights have been going on inside the library at 2 in the morning and staying on until, 8 o'clock at night, and in other words, tell us the timing for the on and off of the interior lights?
Yeah, I can definitely ask if the system keeps record of that.
Right. Thank you. But we haven't heard any reports from residents who've noticed interior lights on in the library. I know there were reports that people had noticed our exterior lights on.
I don't really know what the Facebook post said, but I have not had any reports, via call, email. anything.
Right, I haven't heard anything either.
The one that I had heard, it was the lights inside the library. But, you know, like I said, I don't remember if it was all Facebook or letter or both, but I know that, Catherine, I did see your letter saying, yeah, please let us know.
Mhm.
So maybe we just have to keep saying that, let us know if there's an issue
Yeah, I think
so that
that's
we can
the
jump
best
on it.
way to go, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And it seems like that happens a lot with our building where we have people notice things and not mention it to us. So I would.
Yeah, or they'll
prefer-
mention it to other people.
Yes, exactly. So I'd really prefer if they
Yeah.
gave us a call or an email, that would be
Yeah,
really helpful.
Definitely, yeah.
It's like a neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
So if you live in the neighborhood and you notice the lights on when they shouldn't be, it's just neighborly to let us know.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. So I will go on to, so we talked about HVAC. As far as siding goes, the building inspector and the DPW director met with a siding contractor on Friday. So I'm still waiting for a report. But if you notice some chalk marks on the side of the building, that is from that visit. So don't touch them.
I'm not sure we're the ones you need to be telling that to.
So the third piece of this building phenomena is our flooring. So the building inspector and I have been working with Deb Nor Flooring, and they had installed the cork tile. And so they came in and they did a moisture test, and we were not through the roof with moisture coming off of our concrete slab, which was good. So their recommended fix is that we bring up the tiles that have given us trouble or have popped up or the adhesive has failed, and have those repaired with new tiles and have those stuck down. This is going to be a relatively cost-effective fix for now. I placed an order for cork tiles, which amounted to around $1,400, and then Deb Nor will come in and they will replace a section of the tiles for about another $1,400. And they will show us how it is done so that we could hire a contractor to do it ourselves if we wanted to, or have our custodial staff do it. So there is no other adhesive that we could use. It is just the nature of the beast that there is moisture that comes up through the slab, and it appears that it starts to happen in earnest in the spring and into the summer. And one of the things that the Deb Nor representative brought up was the thawing of the ground when that happens after winter. So I leave this up to the experts. They advised us on the best way to mitigate this issue, and that's how we're going forward with it. Okay, propane. So I signed a new contract with AmeriGas Propane, and they offered us the best price, which I believe was $1.21 per gallon, and we signed a 1-year contract with them. They came out this morning to deliver, but they weren't able to fill until they said we had some sort of way to fix the regulator that was above the ground. And I understand why they wouldn't want to do that because it didn't look great and it wasn't, the best option for having a secure regulator. So they came through and they put the regulator back into the ground, and DPW also came by and they dug out a little bit around the fill well. So they pretty much started the process of the drain, but we'll still have to have the drain put in as per Bill Smith, our civil engineer. So if you drive by, it'll look a little bit different. It has some gravel over there, but we finally were able to get the propane fill. And so we were able to go ahead and get that started. They will need to wait for DigSafe in order to start that drain project, and I am leaving that up to DPW. So they'll let me know when that's going to happen.
So are we on the top of DPW's list to take care of that issue? Or, yeah,
I hope so. It can take 2 to 3 weeks to get DigSafe to schedule. So DPW made the indication to me that they were going to start that process fairly soon, and I will follow up with them. Okay, so on my list, we had talked about
Question.
lighting,
Sorry.
and I don't think there are any other
Sanford?
questions. Yes.
I just have a question. On the propane, is it monitored delivery or do we have to call them
It will be monitored.
remotely by the firm?
There is a gauge, so they'll swing by and they will check the gauge and see if we need
Okay,
it. Mhm.
thank you.
Sure. Okay, so we talked about lighting. I mentioned Wi-Fi, that we'll have our Wi-Fi extended in the parking lot. I'm happy about that and to be able to provide that service to our patrons who are using it out there. Last but not least, we had Somerset Glass come in today and replace the window pane in the Learning Center. So that is all fixed. And they were able to match the coating on the window to the existing window. And that way it won't look much different from the street or inside. So that is all fixed. And also we have asked Somerset Glass for a quote for plexiglass on our public service desks. This has been a recommendation from OLIS, and I'll talk a little bit about that in my reopening plan. And so we are going to go ahead with that. Yes, Carol.
The design for that plexiglass shield, is there an opening at the bottom to pass the books back and forth? Is that how it works?
Yeah, and we actually have to have them custom made because if we were to put them at our information desk, the slat at the bottom needs to be off to the side a little bit due to the computer placement. So it's extensive. Okay, so that's all I have for building.
Was that
That's
all?
enough.
Okay, anything else, Catherine?
I think that's it.
All right, let's move on to new business. Item 1, discussion possible vote on wage increase for adult services and programs librarian. I'm not looking at my phone to like check Facebook or something. I've got the agenda on here.
Okay, so this is for our adult services and programs librarian. And in the summary of items, I gave you a summary of Deb's performance over the past year. And this was something we had published it in her job description. And I know that there has been heavy debate about that in past meetings. So we're not doing that anymore, but this was published in her job description. I think she's done a phenomenal job with her department and has really gone above and beyond with, you know, overcoming certain registration issues. Well, I won't say issues, but I'll say an extreme interest in landscape painting class. So she's really had to transform the registration process and also has implemented new services and taken current services like our homebound book delivery to new heights. And I have so much good feedback from our patrons related to her job here and the communication that she provides to them and just how much she gives to the patrons of the community. So this would be an increase from $21.50 per hour to $22 per hour.
Okay, I will make that motion to approve the director's recommended wage increase for our adult services librarian.
Chris, did you have something to say?
I had a question. So
Go ahead.
could you, I mean, 50 cents is not much, but do you know how much is that a year? And is that something that was put in the budget for already?
Yes.
So you don't have to change the budget?
No.
Okay. And how much is it more? I mean, it's not, it doesn't sound like a lot, but I just wondered how much, I mean, I didn't have I had a busy day, so I didn't figure it out.
So the new rate would be $40,040, and that is up from $39,130. So it is
Okay. That's fine. I was anticipating that, you know, with the budget committee, they might say, oh, it wasn't in the budget. That would be the first thing they would say, but you said it already was put in the budget. So,
Yes, because it was published in the job description, I had made sure to put that in
yeah,
there.
yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Okay. That was all I wanted to know. Okay. So I would second Carol's motion if nobody else did.
And this would be retroactive to her start date of 1 year, which I believe was March 5th. I would have to double check that date. I forgot to grab that beforehand.
All right, so I'll amend the
I'll-
motion to
Oh.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
approve the wage increase retroactive to a year past her, to the year anniversary of her start date.
Pam?
No, she just answered my question. She said retroactive to her start date, which was a year ago. It's not retroactive to the start date. It's retroactive to the 1 year anniversary.
Right.
Isn't- okay.
All in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
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 I,
Aye. Passed unanimously. Thank you all. Okay. And our second item, discussion possible vote clarifying the library director's role in setting operational standards in accordance with OLIS recommendations.
So I had asked Kathy and Carol, I believe it was last week, you know, with our reopening plan, there are going to be changes made to our services, you know, every 2 or 3 weeks, and how implementing that impacts my need of notifying the board. And I know I've been giving you updates just about every week, sometimes twice a week. So I'm wondering, with us thinking about the reopening plan as the next item on the agenda, how I should go about implementing these services, or OLIS is telling us that we need limited hours for when folks are allowed back in the building. So I would just like some clarification on what sort of control I have over that, because I was always under the impression that operational type things related to OLIS standards were always under my purview. So I think it's a good thing to discuss overall. Carol?
Carol?
So I did go back through our bylaws, looking at directors' responsibilities and the personnel manual. And while I agree with Catherine that operations fall under her authority, unfortunately, we don't seem to have language stipulating that I could find. But in the current situation, she will clearly be making decisions that under non-pandemic times, we would have probably some problem with being open such limited hours and not allowing people in and removing computers and things. Catherine did point out, though, that all of her decisions will be based on OLIS recommendations and guidelines at the time. So I'm thinking we should consider adding some language either, well, under the director's responsibilities or authorities, wherever that's outlined, saying that the director makes decisions about operations or is authorized to do that as long as they are in compliance with the current OLIS guidelines and recommendations, because that would cover pandemic times and non-pandemic times. And those would kind of be our guardrails. She can make the decision she needs to make, but we know that they'll always be in accordance with the most current OLIS guidelines and recommendations. So if to somebody, maybe Pam, do you have any idea where that kind of language would go?
Out of the top of my head, I'd have to look.
But we have a job description for the director. Is there one besides what's in the personnel manual?
No.
Okay.
No, because I think because I don't think there was as much before as there is now, and we kind of consolidated everything. I'm not sure. I'll go back and look. And then we can figure out how to put something in there.
My sense is the same as Pam's, that the information is only what's in the policy manual now.
Right, and that talks about the director's ability to hire and evaluate and dismiss employees and things like that. But I think it would be helpful both now and in the future to just delineate that the director has the authority over operations as long as they conform with OLIS guidelines and recommendations. So that 5 years from now, a new director wouldn't say, or 10 years or 20, I hope Catherine stays with us that long, wouldn't say, well, you allowed this director to make those kind of changes without board approval. And the response was because it was in accordance with the OLIS recommendations and guidelines at the time.
Chris?
Oh, I just don't remember. Is there an employment committee, subcommittee?
There's a personnel committee,
Okay.
and it
Subcommittee.
is sounding as though the personnel committee, this might be a useful time for us to get together. Do
Yeah.
we agree on that?
Yeah, I mean, you might want to stipulate it only because, again, I just look at what happens. If you've got, it's a protection for Catherine or whoever is the director. It's like, if you're going to dismiss somebody, you better have those I's dotted and the T's crossed. And I don't know if the personnel committee would do it, but I would think that would be useful to know. And also, I guess if something happens and it has to go to a solicitor or somebody, just because the town gets sued a lot for, certain reasons. And I just think it's good to have, I'm fine with what you were saying, Carol and Pam. It's nice to have a backup, to have another set of eyes to say, yep, that's okay. Or did you think about this, or do you have it all listed? Do you have everything listed? Again, I think it's more if there's a dismissal is more important than if there's a hiring or changing the hours. But I just think if you can do that, I mean, wouldn't that be one of the responsibilities of the subcommittee, the personnel committee, to discuss it?
It is, yes. I think the committee should probably get together to come up with language to add to the description, such as Carol was talking about.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure that we have it in writing that these sorts of responsibilities belong to the library director.
Yeah. And again, it's just transparency. It's just because there's just so much, arguing about all these little things. And it's just like, you just need to make sure that we support the director beforehand and not afterwards. Does that make sense to people?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think-
That would be all I would suggest.
And I think part of my reasoning too is because when we talk about the reopening plan, OLIS has made it very clear that our plan needs to be flexible, and we might not necessarily jump ahead quicker, but we may need to roll certain services back if there are issues that arise, or if hospitalizations increase, or cases increase, and sort of our response to how things are going in the world needs to be very, very quick, depending on what's
And
going on.
actually, if you can actually keep prefacing it the way you did at your remarks, per OLS recommendation, per OLS response, the need for flexibility. I mean, yeah, I just keep putting that stuff in ad nauseum.
Okay,
That's, it's just a protection.
sure.
Catherine, I don't have my book with me right now. Who is currently on the personnel committee?
I am.
So,
You stumped
so
me.
Kathy,
Matt.
Pam, and Kim.
Kathy,
I don't think it's me anymore. I think it changed last year.
you check.
I think personnel is.
How
it's
could I
and
let you get
Kim.
away?
It's you and Kim, and is it
Is it Chris?
is it Chris?
Is it?
I think it might.
Maybe.
We'll check.
I don't, oh, is it?
It is Kathy
Oh, well,
and
okay,
Kim.
that's a,
Just
Kathy
Kathy
and
and Kim.
that
Okay.
must be in my other book.
Okay.
Is it me?
No, just Kathy and Kim.
Okay,
Oh, it's just
okay.
two. Okay.
perfect.
And I don't know if Sanford, I don't think I have the updated list with Sandy.
I think that was the issue, was that Sandy wasn't with us yet. And so we were supposed to update those subcommittees after we had a 7th person join.
Okay.
All right, sounds like that is something I'll need to take a look at, is our committee makeup, and I will be in touch very shortly about a personnel committee meeting.
I'll
Okay.
look on my end as well.
Okay,
I thought we added Sanford though.
We
I
did,
thought we had 2.
right?
Yeah.
He's been assigned to committees. I just don't remember offhand what they are, but they
I
are
know it-
noted
I
in
know
our
it was,
minutes.
Budget. I know budget was one.
Yes.
I could look
I
back
don't
in
remember
the,
what the other one
I
was
think I'm
now.
on the planning with Carol, but that's the only one I remember.
around when did we do this?
Two.
Was
It
it-
would have been
Last fall
January,
was,
I think.
October, I think.
Yeah.
And then
October.
when Sanford, when did you come on? November?
I think it was
December?
in January.
Yeah,
January?
because my email with Kathy was for December about the committee assignments that Sanford was not on.
Yeah, because I remember going to the meeting just to see if I wanted to join. I think it was in November. And I don't believe I went to the town council for approval until January, if I'm not mistaken. February might have been my first meeting. I can go back and check.
Okay.
I'm looking in the
No, but I
minutes.
thought we left some spots opened, and when he joined, he was added to those spots. So I think
Okay.
like October, November will probably be a list, and there'll be some openings in there for
I
whoever.
I can read you the list if you want to from our October 21st minutes.
Okay, please.
Nominating, Kim and Kathy. Personnel, Kim and Kathy. Budget, Pam and Carol. Property, Richard and Pam. LRP, Pam and Carol. Communication, Kathy and Richard. And it said committee memberships may be adjusted if and when the town council fills the board's 2 currently vacant positions.
I might interject. I have the letter from the town of Tiverton. I was appointed at their January 13th, 2020 meeting. And I don't think I attended the first meeting until February.
Okay,
So it would be at the February meeting, I believe.
Except we just approved those February 10th minutes and it was not part of those minutes.
Correct.
So let's go back to the
And I
Jan.
know they were not in March, not in April, and not at this meeting, so maybe we didn't do it.
Maybe.
I don't think we did.
Okay.
all
Well,
right.
that's something for our next agenda. then.
Okay.
Kim, you and I will, we will convene a personnel committee
Sure.
and we'll take care of this.
3 o'clock or later, please.
Not a problem. All right. All right, shall we move on to item 3 on new business? We're not going to vote on item 2 right now until we come up with specific language.
Okay.
All right, item 3, discussion possible vote about phased reopening plan.
Okay, so there have been several meetings, Zoom meetings, of course, between library directors, OLIS, Ocean State Libraries. So this has really been a very, very complicated process, but in a good way, because we ended up getting a lot of guidance from them about our reopening plan. So OLIS actually convened a task force and designated subcommittees for each of these different items that you see under all of the phases on this document. So we have 3 phases and then sort of an after the 3rd phase. And each of the categories are building, staff, meeting rooms, circulation, reference services, programs, computer, and technology is the last one. I did share in my director's summary the link to the webpage for OLIS's reopening guide, and you'll see all of the different subsections of that plan, and also just a very broad overview for the plan in general. So I took all of that information and all the information from the meetings and applied it to our situation here in Tiverton. And some things, you know, I was really, really interested to see that they don't recommend meeting rooms be open until after phase 2, and that even in phase 2, those coming into the library should just be coming in to get pre-ordered items and not browsing in our stacks. So I almost had to dial my knowledge back of, you know, what are we, what is our mission, you know, how do we best serve our population, to really think about our staff and our patrons who come through here, because we do have a lot of traffic every day. We have almost 300 people come through on a normal day. So that's something we really need to think about. So commercial break, one moment. Okay, there we go. So we started off with phase 1, and one of the things that I had just mentioned a few minutes ago was that we really need to be prepared to be flexible with this plan, and nothing can really be set in stone because of how quickly things have changed in the past that we've seen with the pandemic. I mean, it really took, I think, everybody by surprise how quickly we had to close the library. We had to adapt with different services. So I just want to preface the plan by saying that. Phase 1 technically started Monday, May 11th, and that was something that OLIS had been saying, you know, from the week prior to that, that would be a good phase 1 point. And that really May 18th, all libraries should be offering some sort of services, mainly curbside. And that's to the extent that they were suggesting. So you'll see in phase 1, we are still closed to the public. When staff are walking through areas here, they are required to wear a mask when they are here in the library. When they're in their work areas, so you can see I'm in my office right now, my doors are closed, so I'm not wearing a mask. And that way, you know, if everybody's walking through the same space, even socially distanced, we're making sure that we're still protecting ourselves and our colleagues here. Staff are working from home if possible. That was a discussion we had back in March. However, we have had some staff who normally work from home return to start setting up departments, taking away computers or moving desks or self-checkout machines. So that's been a lot going on over the past week. Our meeting rooms are still closed to the public here, and we've, you know, really accepted that they will be for quite some time. The circulation is contactless for Tiverton only materials, although we anticipate seeing holds come back next week in a limited fashion. So maybe just 5 holds per person. And so I'll have more information about that at the end of this week, but it hasn't been voted on by the consortium yet. Our book drop is open and all items are cleaned when they come back to the library. We are also, I'm making sure that when we have a contactless pickup order, that those items are not things that were just returned. And, you know, once our returns really start to pick up, then we'll be setting the carts of books aside for 3 to 5 days, so that they can just, you know, sit there on their own. We've been told so many times that time is the thing that will help us the most as far as disinfecting items go. And I'm sure you've heard that just in general about things you may pick up from the grocery store or other items that folks have come in contact with. So we are having extended loan periods still. It's still the 3 weeks. The automatic renewals are kicking in, which is a good thing. And we hope that homebound delivery will start next week. Reference services are still phone and email only. We're not doing face-to-face reference. And like I said, it's contactless pickup. So depending on weather, it's either in the front underneath the overhang or out in our drive-through area. Programs are virtual only, and staff are preparing take-home and remote programs for summer reading programs and also phase 2. As you can imagine, our summer reading programs have been planned already for weeks and if not months. And so now we had to completely revisit how we are going to do summer reading program this year. And the goal is to have items that children and teens and also adults can take home and do at home in the safety of their own homes. And then last but not least, in phase 1 are computers and technology. So we've been close to the public and you know, our technology here, it has just been staff updating things with computers or other tech in the building. Wi-Fi is available 24/7 and that will always be the case. And we also did purchase a Zoom account for this purpose and also for our different types of meetings that we could have with our programming staff. So this was something that is all under phase 1. So I wanted to make sure, one, that things in phase 1 are sounding amenable to what you think the community wants and needs. This is certainly, all the phone calls we've received about contactless pickup have been so positive and really encouraging, and we really miss our patrons and they miss us too. So this is sort of the extent of what we can do right now, but you know, I did want to make you aware that our services are still limited. And Kathy,
Carol?
are you trying to log in? I have another Kathy who's trying to come in on the meeting.
I am, because I'm looking, I'm about to run out of power on my iPhone.
There you go. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Carol.
So somewhere in the phased reopening, you mentioned mass residents.
Yes, yes.
And I know that we have Massachusetts residents who buy a library card just to check out our books. And then they also have the option of paying more for access to interlibrary loan books.
Mhm.
So several questions come to mind. Number one, how do you tell if somebody is a Mass resident? So would we not be offering curbside pickup to a Mass resident, even if they purchased a card from us? Can you look up from the card where their primary residence is?
So we can, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about this at the town council meetings with Grinnell's Beach being open, and there being Massachusetts residents there or Rhode Island residents going into Massachusetts to do their grocery shopping. So that has been something that I've been watching pretty closely. As far as I can tell, there's no stipulations that prevent Massachusetts residents from coming in and picking something up curbside and contactless. But I'm going to actually email Olis and double check on that this evening. But I think once we get to phase 2 and we're allowing folks in the building, that's where we'll really want to be careful with Massachusetts residents, depending on the governor's executive orders.
Any other comments, questions?
I have a question regarding the timing of the various phases. Are these phases going to be in sync with how the overall state is being mandated to run by the governor? Or are they going to be separate and distinct?
So they're going to try and match up our phases with the governors, but I do think that we may just be a couple steps behind the state in general. So I'll definitely let you know when I receive word on that. I know originally that the governor was talking about 14 days for each phase, but then she retracted that and said it would potentially be a little bit longer for each phase depending on the conditions. So that's something that's unfortunately up in the air. And I will also ask for clarification on that as well.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I think there was some confusion. The
Yes.
2 weeks was the implementation time, and then following 2 weeks would be the assessment time to see how well that went. That's where people were confused.
Yes, yes, exactly. So I think we're in phase 1 right now, and I think we will be here for a few more weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move on to phase 2 if that's all right. And there are not many changes here. So I'll just go over the things that will change from phase 1 if that's all right. One of the things that I identified as being a very, very big deciding factor from us moving from phase 1 to phase 2 is the amount of cleaning materials that we would have here in the library readily accessible. And this has been a feat. I feel like I'm between property manager and procurement specialist for these types of materials. It has been really difficult for us to get cleaning supplies. And, we have looked everywhere. All of our usual channels, we've taken on new vendors to try and find, certain supplies, and it has just really been difficult to try and get those in here. So we have enough for our staff in the building right now, which is great. But some things that we're going to need going in, we will definitely need hand sanitizer. And that is one of the most difficult things to come by right now. And we'll need also not just hand sanitizer, but the stands that they come on. So we can put one right in the lobby. We'll need them on the walls, but even just finding the ones on the wall that go on the walls with a drip tray is so difficult. And the ones that are out there that are available are far exceeding any price we would want to spend on those items. So that is something I am actively working on. Our office administrator, Karen, has been phenomenal. And I know we had a drop off of some wipes today. Thank you, Pam.
It wasn't many. It was the best I could do. I can't get them either. I'm still trying.
I know. It is so difficult. And I'm really hoping that once people see, that they have enough stock at home, that they will, leave some. I also personally, whenever I go into Target or when I go shopping in the grocery store, I'm always looking for that. I have some in my house. So at this point, I'm looking just for the library. So that is something that we're really going to need to be in a good place with to move into phase 2. We'll also need to make sure our plexiglass shields have been installed, and those will be movable. So they're not going to be a permanent fixture. We'll be able to move those.
Catherine, have you posted on the website asking the public for help with wipes and stuff like that?
I haven't done that yet, just because we're looking for bulk purchases, and also the things that we need are somewhat specialized as far as like the receptacles for the Purell Go, and also the cartridges that we would need for them. So I would hate to ask the public and then, have to go ahead and, deny that based on it not fitting into one of the dispensers.
Right.
Also, I'm not sure how we would reimburse them.
Good point.
But yes, I'm almost at that point. So, Okay, so the building would be open for limited hours in phase two. And again, this was something from OLIS, that we would not just be back to our regular hours. We are actually offering curbside for our regular hours. And this is not something that all libraries are doing. I'm very aware that folks may not be able to come in between 10 and 2. They may have to do a nighttime pickup. They may have kids who are remote learning and they may have to come in at 3 or 4. So this is something that we have really committed to, is being able to do curbside all of the hours. So even if we're not open and letting folks in the building during all of the hours, we still have that option for them. And of course, there would be a limited number of people that could be in the building. And right now it's 20% of the current occupancy. And I think when I did that, we would be allowed to have about 70 people in our building, and that is far too many. That is far too many. So I think that we'll need to look at how many people can safely be in our building when the time comes. So with that said, a lot of what we're looking at has to do with executive orders from the governor, and making sure that folks have masks when they come in, and that we may want to be able to provide masks for them if they don't have one. We'll
Catherine?
close. Yes,
Masks I can get you.
that would be great.
Okay.
Yes. We are also going to close our water fountains except for the bottle fill option, and we will give out cups if folks would like, if they really need that. But also part of the issue with the building is that they will be allowed in for a limited amount of time and to only do a pre-ordered pickup. So that's something that, we're really limiting the traffic in the building, and I hate to do that, but it is for the safety of our patrons and our staff. As far as staff go, it would be limited work from home, and most staff would be back in the building with adjusted work areas to account for social distancing. I think specifically about our staff office and also the children's office, and it's difficult to socially distance when we're all here. So we're just going to have to spread out into the meeting rooms. And I have the idea that staff will be working in sort of like teams, so that if one of them does become ill, then that limits the number of people who they are around. So I think that's something that throughout phase one, I'm going to be working on a schedule for our staff, so that, they are in touch, not really in touch, but, in contact from a distance with a limited number of people. Our meeting rooms will still remain closed in phase two. And I said it would not be beneficial for us to accept reservations because it's been difficult now trying to keep up with calling people to cancel for meetings that are happening right now. So I would say that reservations can be made once we enter phase three, so that we're able to sort of, see how that's going and be responsive to that and not having to keep cancel. We hope that our holds numbers will be increased. We'll have that in library pickup. We will have contact lists still available in the drive-through. And we're going to start really amping up. I think this will be about the time that we'll really be working hard to implement our summer reading activities and take home type things. As far as the services go, we are thinking that it would be best to move our young adult librarian's desk in the teen library and also the children's librarian's desk to the entrances of those departments, and having staff get what folks need in there. There has been a lot of discussion about the amount of time that folks spend together. And, as far as social distancing goes, it's really hard for kids. And I am completely sympathetic to that. And I'm sure you've heard a lot about that in the news and, reimagining our space in, a changed world. So the idea behind doing that is we'll still be able to provide services just at the doors of the library. And another thing that we'll have to do throughout the building is remove all of our tables and chairs and just leave very limited tables and chairs. So for a very long time, the library will not be a hangout spot or a stay for a while type spot. And although I'm very sad about that, again, it goes back to the safety of our patrons and our staff. So that is phase two. We'll allow a limited number of computers as well in phase two. And a great idea I heard is, along with keyboard covers, we will also be loaning out mice at the desk so that we know when the computer has been used and we need to clean it once the patron has finished. So patrons won't just come in and hop right on a computer. It'll be, stop at the desk, get a mouse, and then they'll go onto the computer for a limited amount of time. Okay, so that's what I have for phase two. And again, this is something that we're kind of just going with the flow with and really just reading the situation as it comes along. And once we get into phase three, we'll start seeing, an uptick in more hours. So any questions about phase two? Okay, so phase three, we see the, one of our staff members is leaving. We're open to the public for more hours. And of course, we'll have probably still a limited number of people in the library. This has been something that, we all heard the governor say that, maybe events with 50 or more people would be allowed in August, but they're really not sure. So we are definitely looking at that and keeping an eye on how that goes. Some tables and chairs would return. We're guessing that masks would still be required. And we are also thinking about controlled traffic flow for the stacks. This would be something we would finally allow patrons back into sort of browsing stacks and also, being able to roam freely in the library with, of course, a limited number of people there. We'll still have staff in adjusted work areas. We would be opened for scheduled meetings only. We would not allow drop-ins, and that's because we would like to encourage groups to clean tables and chairs before use. And also, I'm gonna have to think about how we wanna space out our meetings. Like, do we need half an hour or an hour between each meeting to make sure it's cleaned, that kind of thing. And so this is phase three. I think this is a little bit far off. So I do think we're gonna have to see how things go in the other two phases in order to get to this point. We again see more circulation services available, like holds, patrons checking out their own items at the info desk. One of the things that we've been thinking about is having the teen and children's locations or spaces closed for the majority of the summer. And that's because we tend to become a hangout spot. And I think this is something that I would like your input on, mostly because that would be a big impact to our library. I know this plan overall is completely, I never thought I would have to make a plan like this and to have to close a department. But I think that as we go along, it might be helpful for us to, just keep safety in mind. So this is something that I'll definitely speak with you all about once we get to this phase and how things are going. So with that said, we're still encouraging virtual and take-home programs. Again, the governor's orders on congregating are really a large limiter for us, and for good reason. So that's something we're very conscious of. And we would potentially add a few more computers in this phase as well. Okay, any questions about phase three?
I don't have a question about three in particular, but just the transition from phase 1, 2, and 3. It looks like under phase 1, you'll have a pretty intense cleaning procedure. It looks like you're going to be cleaning everything before you put it back on shelves. Then in phase 2, you're just going to leave them on a shelf on a cart to be exposed to the air. And then in phase 3, it looks like you're gonna return to normal. I guess that's a kind of a transition.
Yeah, and I do anticipate that we'll
Not
have to.
criticism, I'm just, not a criticism, I'm just saying that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, we're anticipating that returns and withholds coming up, that it's just going to be too much for us to clean. So we'll shift from the cleaning to letting time
The
take over.
volume would be an issue, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
And I also think that as far as supplies go, that's something that we're really conscious of. And, you know, if folks would like to clean their books before they take them home with them, we'll certainly offer that kind of service. So actually, I will put this in there. Back to in phase 3, I'm hoping that we won't have to still quarantine items for 3 to 5 days, but if we do, then we do. So.
That's fine.
Okay, so we go into after phase 3, and this is sort of what I'm thinking about might be when we have a vaccine or, you know, just really low occurrence of cases. I don't know if we'll be in the after phase 3 part for quite some time. So we would be back open to the public for all hours. We would still have limited number of chairs and socially distanced, and we'd probably at some point move back towards getting our tables and chairs all throughout the library. All staff would be back in the building, and meetings would be available for scheduled and drop-in, which would be great to be back to that. We'll still encourage groups to clean, and really it depends on the governor's executive orders about congregating. All circulation services would be back to pre-COVID status. I actually kind of think that we may get to that in phase 3, but it's really hard to tell. And services and programs and computers and technology are also continued from phase 3. So we see a lot of the after phase 3 as using a lot from the actual phase 3. Okay, any questions?
Do we have a motion to approve the draft plan that Catherine has presented?
I'm a little concerned about voting on it because it's largely unknown. I mean, it's very, and it has to be at this point. You know, it's very flexible. They're going to see, things might change all the time. So, I mean, I almost want to go back to the language that we approve a phased reopening plan that as determined by the director in accordance with OLIS recommendations.
That seems sensible. Anyone else have a comment?
You know, I just don't want her to be held to anything that she described tonight that OLIS might decide in 2 weeks, well, you know what, we've rethought that and we're not going to recommend that anymore.
And I can tell you ahead of time that, you know, something like limited hours, I would of course let you all know what we're thinking for that, you know, days, afternoons, nights, that kind of thing, so that you're aware of that before, like those very large operational changes.
Could I make a note? I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
I just wanted to say, yeah, I agree with Carol, and to keep it loose, because I think, and it's also, as you do more meetings with OLIS and things are going to change. Someone else is going to say, oh, I've got an idea. What about this? And we don't want to have to go back and say, so I agree to keep it. You've got the draft, you've got the outline, the plan, and the flexibility. If you put that resolution, do we need to vote, by the way, on this? Do we need to?
Well, I think if it's a general enough language that
Yeah.
we
The
agree
one that
with
you
phased
mentioned.
reopening, because really the building has been closed. So
Yeah.
it probably is a good idea to take a vote that we approve a phased reopening as determined by the director. I mean, she gave us the broad outlines
Yeah.
in accordance with OLIS recommendations.
Could I mention something? I believe in her introduction, she's indicated that it is flexible and that there would be possibly changes depending upon how the pandemic rolls forward. She's kind of indicated that this is a flexible plan. There are no firm dates except for the initial start date of May 11th. Other than that, everything else seems to be flexible in terms of when they start. And I'm sure if there are any major changes, she would notify the president and vice president in terms of if there should be an emergency meeting to approve.
So did you want to suggest a rewording for the motion?
Yeah, I guess we could reword it, but I think she's kind of covered it in the first paragraph that it's flexible. Maybe I'm missing it, but I think she's already covered that piece, that it's flexible, subject to changes, and that's what she's indicated in the draft itself. I could be confused. Maybe I'm.
No, she said it in the first sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we feel comfortable with the motion that Carol made? Pam, did you have a comment?
Yeah, my only comment is to vote on the different stages. Some of them are so far away. Can we just, if we need to vote on something, can we just vote on the first part of it that is really relevant to right now? Because the rest of it, we don't really know when it's going to even happen.
Right. The only thing though, but she does say it's a draft, but because the thing is, if you get this sense that you want to start looking at phase 2, you don't want to have to say, okay, now can we approve the possibility for phase 2? You want to prepare for it because it sounds like, especially this stuff about the cleaning,
Yeah, it's gonna be
you might
hard.
as well start
Yeah.
yesterday. But that's the only downside I could see of it. But
And I can understand too, because there's a possibility between now and our next meeting that 2 rolls out. But
Yeah.
for 3 and 4, that's 3 is not going to happen in 30 days.
correct.
I agree.
So do you want the motion to say that we approve a phased reopening that includes phases 1 and 2? And we will reconsider at our next meeting approving phases 3 and 4? I'm just trying to come up with some language that we
I know.
all feel good with.
Sanford, does that make you feel better about?
I'm fine with it. Because at some point, these phases will come in. We may have to move some of these steps in the phases may shift out as opposed to being pulled in. I don't know when that's going to happen. Again, there's no firm date. As far as phase 1 and 2, if you want to limit it to phase 1 and 2, I'm fine with that.
I just find that might be really, really hard for Catherine in the library to prepare for anything if we say we're only going to do 1 and 2 right now. They can't look too far forward then if we're not making an approval on anything. And I know that at our last meeting, we already voted to say that if anything significant was going to change and anything that was happening, that Catherine was going to notify the board.
And Carol, your original motion, you said,
The phased reopening plan as described by the director according to
OLIS regs.
recommendation.
I guess the other thing is, I would rather not have Catherine keep rewriting plans because I think it's just so busy that,
Would appreciate
it's just like she's got it out there as the plan for the next several months. And I would, it sounds like it'd be too much. I just think it'd be more of a burden on her. I'm happy with what it is now, with what Carol said. And we already have, my understanding, well, I guess Kathy just said it, is that if there's big changes, I mean, we go over this stuff anyhow at the next meeting, you know, because she updates us and just say, okay, this seems to be working okay, had to change this. But otherwise, if you have to keep on rewriting plans or phases of plans, I just think it's still guessing what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. So that's the only downside. That's one of the downsides I see. But, and I think that what Carol said, I think what Carol said in the preface of the report, I think that we're covered.
I wouldn't want Catherine to think, and I know that nobody is intending this, but I wouldn't want her to think that this is us micromanaging her work.
Plan as she's written it is fine. I don't have a problem if we approve the plan as written. It's fine.
So what motion are we working with currently?
How about a motion to approve a phased reopening of the library in accordance with OLIS guidelines? Would that work, Catherine? And then there's no mention of phases, how many they're going to be, what's going to happen in each one. We just know it will be a phased reopening and that it will always be in accordance with OLIS guidelines. So at some point, OLIS might say, oh, well, no, all libraries have to move back to phase 1 from phase 2.
Mhm.
And we're all covered.
Okay, so can I read that back to you? Motion to approve a phased reopening plan for the library as described by the director in accordance with OLIS regulations,
Or OLIS guidelines. Is that better, Catherine?
guidelines.
That's great.
Or, yeah.
Do we have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Hi.
All right, anything else? I'm down to 1% power. So I'm so glad we got that vote in before everything fell apart on my end.
Yes, I just wanted to say, I appreciate all the work you've been doing, Catherine, but also I think that was a great idea to separate out all the COVID stuff. That was smart. I don't know if it was your idea or somebody else's, but that is smart because at some point, maybe we will get reimbursement, but at least you have an idea of what it costs.
Yeah, we've
So-
had indication from the treasurer's office and also OLIS that there may be funds for that. So we're
Great idea.
really fingers crossed on that.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thanks, everyone. Motion to adjourn.
So
Sure.
moved.
So move.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Aye.